Who are we? And why are we here? Or in more practical terms, why do we take the time to attend these summer reunions? To answer this question, we need to travel back to Cleveland, Ohio in the late 1800s. In 1855, at the age of 23, Alfred Cowles quit working for his big brother at the Cleveland Leader newspaper in Ohio and headed west to Illinois to work for a small newspaper called the Gem of the Prairie. In a few years, this became known as the Chicago Daily Tribune, and Alfred Cowles became a large shareholder. Alfred married Sarah Frances Hutchinson, and they had 3 children. The oldest, Alfred Jr., stayed in Chicago to manage the estate left to him and his siblings. He served on the Tribune Company Board of Directors and invested in Chicago real estate. His sister, Sarah Frances Cowles, married Philip Battelle Stewart and moved with him to Boston. The youngest brother, William, moved further west to Spokane and began investing in another newspaper called the Spokane Falls Spokesman. Big brother Alfred was concerned that William was squandering his inheritance, but William was determined to make his own way. When he died in 1946, he left a successful newspaper business in Spokane to his 3 children. As a boy growing up in Chicago, William was severely injured while playing in the rail yards. One of his feet had to be amputated, and he walked with a wooden leg for the rest of his life. This was partly what motivated his purchase of property and construction of the house on Eucalyptus Hill in Santa Barbara, where he and his wife Harriet Cheney spent the winter months each year. William and Harriet had 3 children: Harriet, William H. Jr., and Cheney. Harriet married Buell Hammett and moved to Santa Barbara, where they raised 2 boys, Benjamin and Lawrence. William H. Jr. stayed in Spokane and married Margaret Payne. They had 4 children: William III, James, Margaret, and Agnes. William H. Jr. joined the business his father created and eventually became publisher. His brother Cheney also began working at Spokesman Review. He married Sarah Ferris, and they had 2 children, Phoebe and Cheney. Unfortunately, his story was cut short by World War II. Cheney died in a U.S. Army Air Corps plane crash near Vinegar Bend, Alabama in 1943. This is how William H. Cowles Sr.'s family grew to include 8 grandchildren, to each of whom he willed a portion of his estate and company stock. As this 3rd generation grew up, they had many opportunities to be together. Ben and Larry spent summers in Coeur d'Alene with Bill, Jim, Peggy, Agnes, Cheney, and Phoebe. Many boats were built, launched, and sunk. Eventually, Bill and Jim took on leadership roles in the company. Bill became publisher and oversaw the media businesses, while Jim was responsible for the mill and real estate. Bill and Jim began to meet with their siblings and cousins to share information about the family businesses, periodically holding half-day meetings at the San Francisco airport. At the time of Bill's death in 1992, his 2 children were on their way to taking leadership roles in the companies. At the same time, the family continued to grow and change. As the 16 great-grandchildren of W.H. Cowles Sr. came of age through the 80s and 90s, there was a family wedding every year or 2. There were also 2 funerals, for Margaret Payne Cowles in late 1991 and Bill Cowles in early 1992. All of these events, both happy and sad, were well attended and formed a good basis of interactions from which to build. As Stacy and Betsy's involvement with the businesses grew, they became convinced of the importance of having the family interact directly with the business and the family members managing them, and they engaged a consultant to help define a structure for doing this. A few ad hoc committee meetings were held in the airport in Denver, and the first meeting of the entire family to consider this structure was held in Spokane in 1996. For a few years, family reunions were held in Spokane each summer. Eventually, it was agreed that reunions should rotate between Spokane, Santa Barbara, and a 3rd location. The content of these meetings also evolved with the creation of a separate annual meeting each spring in Spokane to focus on business issues, which freed up the summer reunions to be more about fun and socializing. Summer reunions now include a collection of different activities that give family members the opportunity to learn about family history, the company, and each other. Each year is a little different, but personal introductions have become a particular highlight. These began with members of the 3rd generation sharing life stories and personal wisdom, and were expanded to serve as a coming-of-age ritual for members of the 5th generation to introduce themselves to the group as they entered high school. So why do we gather? We gather to support and lead the businesses, and we benefit from our connection to the businesses in return. But more importantly, we come together to deepen our personal connections to other family members and to enjoy the support of the group as a whole. These meetings do include some things that feel like work, but we also do a lot of playing. Beyond the detailed schedules and agendas, each of us is learning who we are and where we come from. We are making personal connections with people with whom we share not just genetics, but a financial legacy. We've been given the opportunity to learn and grow as individuals in a safe and supportive environment, and to build a community from which we can all draw strength and support. Over more than 100 years and 6 generations, we have created a story, a legacy, and a support system to carry each family member forward on their journeys into the future.